Welcome friends, in this video let's discuss about Kyoto Protocol and various flexibility mechanisms that are available in the protocol, that is joint implementation, clean development mechanism and emission trading. This Kyoto Protocol is an extension to 1992 United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. As we know in our previous video, UNFCCC is an international convention that is aimed to reduce the global greenhouse gas emission into the atmosphere, and this is not a legally binding convention, and it provides only a framework for the member countries to agree upon a protocol that puts binding limit on the member countries to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So, in third conference of parties of UNFCCC, this Kyoto Protocol was adopted. This Kyoto Protocol then sets the binding limit on the member countries to reduce global greenhouse gas emissions. So, this Kyoto Protocol was adopted in 1997 and came into force only in 2005 because certain number of countries must have ratified before it coming into force. So only in 2005 it came into force, and the first commitment period for the Annex 1 countries, that is the industrialized countries, to reduce the global greenhouse gas emissions was started in 2008 to 2012, and at present the second commitment period is running, that is from 2012 to 2020. So at present there are currently 192 parties under the Kyoto Protocol, and Canada recently withdrew from protocol on December 2012 because it feels that it is facing discrimination. And this Kyoto Protocol implements the objectives of UNFCCC, that is reducing the global greenhouse gas emissions. And this Kyoto Protocol sets the legally binding obligation on the developed countries to reduce the global greenhouse gas emissions. So why only developed countries are legally bound to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions? Because of the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities. So this common but differentiated responsibility means every nation has a common responsibility, but certain countries has differentiated responsibility because of their historic role in emitting gases into the atmosphere during industrial revolution. For example, various developed countries of European Union, OECD countries, and US emitted a huge amount of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere during industrial revolution, whereas the developing countries and least developed countries were not. So only the developed countries has the moral obligation to reduce the greenhouse gas emission into the atmosphere. So this is the common but differentiated responsibilities. Now let's look at some of the principal concepts of the Kyoto Protocol. So this Kyoto Protocol provides legally binding commitment for the Annex 1 countries, that is the industrialized countries. Okay, and these commitments were based on the Berlin Mandate. And implementation of the protocol is based on the Annex 1 countries are required to prepare various policies, programs and measures for reduction of greenhouse gases in their respective countries. In addition, they are required to reduce the absorption of greenhouse gases and utilize all other mechanisms that are available in the protocol, including joint implementation, clean development mechanism and emission trading. And other principle of the protocol is that minimizing the impact of global warming on developing countries and least developed countries by establishing a fund called Adaptation Fund for Climate Change. And this fund will provide financial assistance to developing countries and least developed countries in undertaking various green initiatives and also to adapt to the global warming. And other principles include the accounting, reporting and review of greenhouse gas emission into the atmosphere must be there in order to ensure the integrity of the protocol. So there is established institutional mechanism for accounting, reporting and review of the greenhouse gas emission into the atmosphere with respect to the individual countries. So the compliance, establishing a compliance committee is there to enforce the compliance with the commitment under the Kyoto Protocol. So this is a well structured protocol to put legally binding obligation on the Annex 1 countries, that is the industrialized countries, to reduce global greenhouse gas emissions. So the country, in order to provide the responsibility to the member countries differentially, okay, categorize the countries into different annexes, which are mentioned in the annexures of the Kyoto Protocol. These are Annex 1 country, Annex 2 country, and non-annex countries. This Annex 1 countries includes developed countries and industrialized countries, and these countries accepted the legally binding commitment to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And Annex 2 countries are some of the Annex 1 countries. Okay, some of the Annex 1 countries, they agreed that along with accepting legally binding obligation, they also provide financial assistance to developing countries and also transfer of technology to developing countries in helping them to mitigate and adapt to global warming. So only some of the countries of the Annex 1 country or Annex 2 countries which provide financial assistance and technological assistance to developing countries. And non-Annex countries are the countries which are not mentioned in the Annex 1 and Annex 2 countries, and these are mostly the developing countries like India, South Africa, Brazil, China, and various least developed countries. And the protocol also mentions the Annex A, and this Annex A includes 6 greenhouse gases that must be reduced by the Annex 1 countries. Okay, legally and voluntarily by the non-Annex 1 countries. Okay, and these greenhouse gases are carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, sulfur hexafluoride, perfluorocarbons, hydrofluorocarbons. Only these 6 gases are mentioned in the Kyoto Protocol. Please remember from prelims point of view. And Annex B in the protocol provides quota system. It provides emission cap, that is a quota. That means certain quantity of carbon dioxide must be released into the atmosphere by a certain country. So this quota must be respected by the individual countries. So every country, Annex 1 country, at all respect, should respect this quota system. So they should not violate, they should not overshoot the quota provided to each country in the matters related to emission of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. So they should remain within this quota, okay, for a particular year. This graph shows the carbon dioxide emission and of the Annex 1 countries and various targets put forward by the Kyoto Protocol during the first commitment period, that is 2008 to 2012. So this Kyoto Protocol takes 1990 as the base year 1990 as the basal year, and the carbon dioxide emission into the atmosphere during 1990 is taken as the base year. And they sets legally binding limit on the Annex 1 countries based on this base year. For example, for United Kingdom, that country must reduce the greenhouse gas emission 12.5% below 1990 level. Okay. Similarly, for Switzerland, it is 8% below 1990 level of emission of the Switzerland during that period. So such kind of targets are provided under Kyoto Protocol for all the Annex 1 countries. So various countries succeeded in reducing the greenhouse gas emissions. For example, here Romania, it was given only 8% reduction from the 1991 level. It succeeded in achieving 53.1% below the 1991 level. And Latvia, only 8% was fixed. It achieved 63.8% below 1990 level. So other countries like Australia, even though it was provided 8% above 1990 level emission target, okay, it exceeded the target and it emitted 51.8% above 1990 level. So this is the situation during first commitment period. So the results are differential, not uniform. And architecture of Kyoto Protocol regime. And this architecture includes reporting and verification procedure. So there is an established procedure is there for reporting and verification of the greenhouse gas emissions, and flexible market mechanisms and a compliance system. As I mentioned earlier, each country is given a quota under Annex B. So for example, United Kingdom, assume that it is provided that that country must emit only 1,000 tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere in 2004. Okay, so 2014. So if United Kingdom exceeds this 1,000 tons of carbon dioxide emission into the atmosphere in 2014, for example, it emits another 500 ton of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, it is in violation of the Kyoto Protocol. But UK can escape from the penalty by employing various flexible market mechanism. Okay, through various mechanisms like joint implementation, clean development mechanism, and emission trading. So these are different mechanism that is flexible, available to the Annex 1 countries to escape from penalty if it violates the quota fixed by the Kyoto Protocol. So in joint implementation, it is available for Annex 1 country, this flexible mechanism, and when a country exceeds the emission cap. Okay, this is the emission cap provided to that country. It has exceeded this amount. Okay, and in order to escape from penalty, it is this procedure is provided, joint implementation to that country. So it can undertake emission reduction projects in other industrialized country, in another Annex 1 country. Okay, various emission reduction projects like renewable energy projects like wind energy, solar energy, and employment of reforestation and afforestation projects. So by undertaking these projects in other industrialized country, it may result in reduction of emission equivalent to that amount which has exceeded the limit. So if UK undertake emission reduction project in other industrialized country like Switzerland, okay, and it has succeeded in reducing the amount of carbon dioxide that it has exceeded during that period, so this country is escaped from penalty. So this is a flexible mechanism. Altogether, the total emission allowance is same, but only the carbon dioxide emission is redistributed. Here, it is undertaking the project in other industrialized countries to reduce the equivalent amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere by undertaking various carbon dioxide reduction projects. So this country reduced the carbon dioxide emission by undertaking projects with the assistance of this country. So this reduction is equivalent to this excess. So total emission allowance is same. So this is the joint implementation. So this is a flexibility mechanism available to the Annex 1 country. And clean development mechanism is similar to joint implementation, but here the Annex 1 country, that is industrialized country, is investing in non-annex country, that is developing country, whereas in joint implementation, Annex 1 country is investing in another Annex 1 country. Whereas in clean development mechanism, Annex 1 country is investing a carbon dioxide reduction emission project in non-Annex 1 country, that is developing country. So if UK invest in India to reduce the greenhouse gas emission by providing technology and financial assistance to adapt wind energy, solar energy, or solar lanterns. So this is the clean development mechanism. So they can escape from penalty from the Kyoto Protocol. So India and China are the major markets for clean development mechanism, and various Annex 1 countries are investing in India to escape from the penalty. Okay, 14.7% of the total clean development mechanism projects are invested in India, and China, 60% of the projects are invested in China, and certain Republic of Korea 9.1%, Brazil 7.2%, likewise. So this is clean development mechanism. And in emission trading, here, as I mentioned earlier, each country is given a total emission cap, that is a quota. So if that country exceeds that quota, it can buy carbon units, carbon credit from other country which is within the limit of the quota. So if that country has 5 units of carbon dioxide, that means 5 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent gases remain within that quota, it can sell that unit to the country which has violated the quota system. So this is the carbon credit. It can buy the carbon credit from the other countries, that is other industrialized countries. So that the units are traded among the industrialized countries to remain within the limits. Here also the total emission allowance is the same for the member countries. So here this country has saved the carbon dioxide emission into the atmosphere, so it can sell this reduced carbon dioxide emission to the country which has violated this emission cap. Okay, so this is emission trading. And there are penalties for the non-compliance in the Kyoto Protocol. Okay, if a country does not meet the requirement for the measurement and reporting, then it loses the privilege of gaining credit through joint implementation projects. Okay, joint implementation projects are denied to those countries. Okay, and if the country crosses emission cap, then that country must make the difference. Okay, and additional 30% emission reduction in the next year. So these are the penalties that are levied on the Annex 1 countries if it violates the emission cap obligations. So at present, the status of the protocol is that first commitment period started in 2008 and it ended in 2012, and the second commitment period was agreed on 2012 itself, known as Doha Agreement, okay, Doha Amendment to the protocol, and in which 37 countries have binding targets. Here, Australia, European Union, and its 28 member countries, Belarus, Iceland, Kazakhstan, Norway, Switzerland, Ukraine are all agreed for the second commitment period. But Belarus, Kazakhstan, and Ukraine have stated that they may withdraw from the protocol or not put into legal force the amendment with the second round of targets. So this Kyoto Protocol is under threat. And Japan, New Zealand, and Russia have participated in the Kyoto's first round, that is 2008 to 2012, and have not taken new targets in the second commitment period. So these are also escaping from the legally binding commitment, that is Japan, New Zealand, and Russia. And Canada recently withdrew in 2012, and United States, even though signed the Kyoto Protocol, it has not ratified. Okay, it is also outside the Kyoto Protocol. As of July 2015, 36 states have accepted the Doha Amendment to extend from 2012 to 2020 the Kyoto Protocol, while entry into force requires 144 states. So it is not agreed by all the 144 states. So it is a rough road ahead. And this is the status of the countries. These are all the countries mentioned in the blue are non-annexed countries. This green mentioned here is the Annex B parties with binding target in the second period. So most of the European Union countries are and Australia are there, and this is the Russia and Japan and Greenland, they have not agreed for the second commitment period. So United States is outside Kyoto Protocol. So this is it about Kyoto Protocol. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel.